Don't know how lake and jet skiing go together, but we ended up going jet skiing, and I fell off the jet ski. I've learned a couple of things. Number one, wake jumping is easy. Wave jumping, not so predictable. So I learned how to jump some waves, and also that if you don't go fast enough and you try to turn, you will tip over in the lake, and that was cool. But I love spending time with my mom. My mother has been my hero. When I was growing up, I thought she knew everything, and when I was probably about 17 or 18, I realized that wasn't the case, and I was very, very disappointed. But we talked about everything from planets to biology, humans as bad galactical neighbors if there is other life forms out there. We talked about science fiction, Africa, Mesopotamia. I mean, she's got a library, like an old school library, just full of books. And it just led me to realize why I am the person that I am, because I was always surrounded by knowledge, and I was always taught to question everything, including my parents. If they told me something and I didn't believe it, I was supposed to go to the library and prove them wrong. So I, shout out to my parents for giving me the desire to constantly keep learning. And, one of the things that I thought about while I was on the lake with them was, my parents are 69 years old. And my bonus dad was on the lake, standing up, going as fast as he possibly could. And I just kept thinking to myself, I don't even know if they realize their age. Like, this is not the retirees of yesteryear, like our grandparents. Like these, 70-year-olds, these baby boomers are doing stuff that, we do. So they have no idea that they're older, and they definitely don't act like grandparents, So shout out to them. And part of one of the stories that I'm going to be talking about in my top 5 stories has to do with the new generation of baby boomers and what they want from retirement and what their retirement looks like versus their parents' generation, which was the last generation. They call it the do as you're told generation. So the baby boomers don't do as they're told, and a lot of them didn't raise us up to do as we're told. But coming up today on Financial Renaissance with the M's, we're going to talk about the financial benefits of taking time off. We're going to jump into Mike Tyson's weed ranch. Bet you didn't know he had a weed ranch. And then we're going to be talking about tips to protect your business from the scammers when we come back on 300 Seconds. All right, and we're back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. You are watching us at facebook.com/notdumbdown. That's right, we don't have stupid conversations on this show. We're talking about things that happen in Washington, things that happen on Wall Street, and how they impact us here on Main Street. You can take part of the conversation by putting your comments in the comment section, liking the station. We're also live streaming. You don't have to watch us. If you're in the car, we're at ssnatl.com. And you can also join in the conversation by texting us at 678-613-5857. Now, coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about common scams that target small business owners, how to protect your business, and then scammer tactics. Like, what type of tactics do scammers use to get into your business or infiltrate your business and to get into your employees and just kind of mess things up. But first, let's talk about the financial gain of taking a break and why it's important to take time off. We're in this bad habit, I think, of not taking time off. The same people who took away bonuses, who stopped giving wage increases, who took away, good, solid medical or health care benefits, and also kind of pull back on their contribution to our retirement benefits, also have us feeling guilty about taking time off. And let's think about this for a second. So as Americans, we're not like the Europeans where, some of them will take the whole summer off or they take these extended vacations. For us, about a week or two is about average. But in today's world, even with the millennials, a lot of them are just working through a lot of their vacations. And this whole concept of taking time off is wrong, or unplugging from work is wrong. And the thing that I have to say about that is we as Americans, in order to give our jobs the best and be the best person that we can be at work and give our companies what they're paying us for, we have to take the time off. Now, let me tell you what time off doesn't mean. Time off doesn't mean going to the beach or going on vacation with your family, but still checking your emails. Vacation doesn't mean going on vacation with your family and, taking one or two conference calls. That's not being on vacation. And if you're with your family, you also have to think about what message that is translating to them if you have kids. Kids need to understand, and spouses and partners and families need to understand that there is a time that is treasured, that is just for you and your family, and nothing in the outside world can get to it. If you're able to do that and rejuvenate and renew your energies, when you come back to work, you're going to come back at 100%, feeling like 110% or whatever that number is, but you're not going to have any worries, right? Because you were able to step away. So one of the things, and I know, people hate this about me, and it's okay. It's okay to be hated because I'm all about setting boundaries, right? And these are my boundaries. When I'm on vacation, I really don't do social media. I don't check social media. I typically don't post. I had to post on my birthday because, my wife was like, it's rude. People are saying happy birthday to you and you're not saying anything back. So I had to post some stuff on my birthday. Okay, thank you for all the birthday wishes. But normally when we go on vacation, we don't post anything. We don't post where we are. We don't post what we're doing. We can do all that stuff when we get back. But literally, my phone, my iPad stays on airplane mode, Wi-Fi only if I need it for my favorite game, Candy Crush. But if I don't need Wi-Fi, no checking the news, none of that stuff. Like completely detached from the world. When you detach yourself from the world, things feel so much better. So you have to go ahead and block off time to rejuvenate or for renewal. And if you're a business owner, think about the messaging or the message that you're sending to the people that work with you, your team. They need to see that you're taking time off. One of the reps that works at my firm, Shardea Ages, she's gone on vacation a couple of times, and when she's on vacation, I may get some emails from her. And I have no problem telling her, don't email me again. No problem saying that because, again, if you're going to be on vacation, be on vacation. Everything can wait. Unless it's an extreme emergency, and that's what backup people are for. That's why you train other people, is so that other people can help while you're away on vacation. So on today's show, we're still going to jump back into things that you can do to while you're on vacation, developing a hobby, things of that nature. And then we're going to look into some tactics that scammers use to infiltrate your company when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the M's. And we're back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. You are spending your precious Sunday mornings with us, and we appreciate it. I'm so happy my producer didn't get tetanus. Last show, we thought he had tetanus in his eye. We thought he had something, but it was just some type of infection because he was wiping his eyes, spreading stuff from one eye to the next eye. But it wasn't tetanus, and I was hoping I was going to meet my first person with lockjaw because I've never seen somebody like with their jaw locked up. But unfortunately, that's not happening. Listen, crazy story. I don't know if you knew about this, but Mike Tyson is opening up a weed ranch in the Palm Springs desert, and it's going to have the world's longest lazy river. Hey, you two, the world's longest lazy river. And it's a weed ranch. Are y'all listening? They're not listening to me. Okay, they're not feeling me, but we'll get into that because it's important. We were discussing last segment about taking time off for rejuvenation, and this Tyson Weed Ranch kind of ties into that because it's a great vacation destination. But one of the things I think we need to do as Americans, whether you're an employee or you're a business owner, we have to wire time in for rejuvenation, for renewal. Whether it's taking time and going to some place to get a massage or acupuncture or just shutting off from the world, but wire it in. Maybe take off a Thursday and have an extended weekend, or take off a Friday and a Monday or something along those lines. But make sure that you're taking time to unplug and that time is wired in, and that your staff, your boss, whoever knows that you're not available during that time. If you're still available to work, you're still at work. Period. So there's no hiding from that. And then the other thing too is developing a hobby. A lot of people, and in my business, I'm a certified financial planner. A lot of times the people that I work with are extremely successful during their working lives. And they work, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week plus. They take a few vacations, but they don't have a hobby, and they wait till they're retired to have a hobby. That's not the time to do it. By the time you retire, you want to know who you're going to be kicking it with. You don't want to wait. It's like meeting new friends. Like, it's very uncomfortable. So you want to take care of that stuff while you're still working, so you can kind of figure out who you're going to be hanging out with and, things of that nature. So make sure that you wire in time to take off from work, and that you also start developing a habit, even if that's playing PlayStation or something like that. So now let's look into some of the things that scammers are doing to get into your company. So how do you know whether or not you are being scammed? So here's something that you should be sharing with your employees. Scammers will pretend to be someone that you trust. They'll make themselves believable by pretending to be connected to some type of government agency or a company likely to do business with your company. Okay, so make sure if you've got people answering the phone, taking calls from just random people or whatever, that they're writing down the name of the company, a good callback number, just the name of the person, all the pertinent information before giving any information out. If it doesn't feel, okay, just tell them, hey, we'll give you a call back. The other thing is that scammers like to create a sense of urgency. Nothing upsets me more than when somebody tries to pressure me into doing something. We need this money by this date, or we need something by this date. Nah, not going to be able to do it. If I don't have enough time to vet what's going on, then it's just not an opportunity for me. There's going to be many more, but I don't believe in if I don't do something right away that stuff is just going to blow up. So make sure that you don't make any quick decisions, especially if you were not expecting a call from a certain person. They also scammers like to use intimidation and fear tactics, like, we will, cancel your social security number, will cancel your passport, will do something to your driver's license. The federal government, state government, they never call you and threaten you. And if it's a company that you do business with that's demanding, credit card payments or something like that, you can always call them back. But never give up any information on a call when somebody's demanding and trying to make you, put you kind of into a panic. And the other thing scammers do is they use untraceable payment methods. So whether that's gift cards, or they want you to do some type of wire transfer or some type of reloadable card, something that's impossible to track or reverse track, things of that nature. So you want your employees to know that these are, and be comfortable with talking about things that the scammers do. I think one of the ways that they get us is that we're embarrassed because we've been scammed, and then we don't say anything. Don't believe, and tell your staff. Very important. Tell your staff, tell your elder loved ones. Don't believe the caller ID. These scammers can now make their numbers look like they're calling from the federal government or from a company that you're familiar with, things of that nature. So don't buy into that. And then remember about email addresses. They call it phishing. Remember to really look at the email address, hover over it, teach your staff, teach your parents, teach your grandparents how to hover over an email and make sure that the extension looks good. They may see Chase.com, but they don't know that the stuff in front of it is fake, or that it says Chase and then something dot whatever. Explain to them how email addresses are supposed to look and what they should and shouldn't be getting from real legit companies. The other thing is, remember that your organization's files and passwords needs to be kept secret and should not be given out via email or via a phone call. Now, on the other side of the break, we're going to look at how you should train your employees and also how to verify invoices and payments when we come back on Financial Renaissance with the M's. We are back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. Thank you for watching and listening to us this morning. We are streaming live on ssnatl.com, and you can watch us live on facebook.com/notdumbdown, or you can look for the Sensation Station Network, click on like, and then you're able to watch the show. If you do want to join in the conversation, you can text us at 678-613-5857, or you can just drop your comments in the comment section. Now, we are deepening our financial knowledge this morning, and don't forget, we're digging into the Mike Tyson weed ranch story. I'm fascinated by Mike Tyson. I'm fascinated by just him as a person, and I'll dig into that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about some of the tactics that these scammers are using to infiltrate our companies. And I would really love for business owners to encourage employees to talk about stuff. If you see an email that doesn't look right, even if it's like in your scam folder, don't click on it, but either, take a screenshot of it, hover over it and teach them how to, screenshot. Maybe that's what they give to their IT person, or that's what you guys can use for your meetings to talk about, scam things that happen. Like a lot of times people who aren't as tech savvy feel bad or guilty for either A, not knowing, and the only way for people to know and understand about a lot of these scams is to educate them and make them feel comfortable and know that they're not being targeted, everybody is being targeted. The other thing is having everybody check all of the invoices. Any invoice that comes in, before it's paid, make sure it's legit. Make sure it's a legit invoice number. Read the invoice and make sure you're being billed for what, things that have actually been done, or services, or products. Look out for like office. There's fake office supply invoices that come in, and look at the ways that you're paying stuff. If you're used to paying XYZ company and something comes in from ABC company, don't pay ABC company if you're not familiar with it. Check with the person who usually does that stuff and make sure that they didn't change vendors. And then one of the popular ones nowadays is tech support scams. They'll call and say, hey, we're calling from, Microsoft, or we're calling from Apple, and we want to, we noticed a virus in your computer, yada, yada. Tell people that Microsoft and Apple just don't call. Okay, usually we have to call into their support centers, but they don't have the ability to just call out because they've seen something crazy happen to your computer. So let people that you work with know about that. And then the other thing is the utility company scams. A lot of times these scammers try to pretend that they're calling from like electric, gas, or water, and if you don't pay this bill, we're going to shut off your lights. And if you're at a company, you may be afraid that, oh, maybe I forgot to pay something. I don't want the boss to get mad at me. Make sure before you pay anybody that you check the books and make sure that you've that you're not paying for something that you didn't need to be paying for. Now, another and popular one is government agency imposter scams. Again, the government is not going to call you. Usually they send you a letter, an official letter, and then, they set up a time and tell you who you need to speak to, things of that nature. Now, your property and casualty or your business insurance agent about cyber insurance. It is too cheap not to get. It will protect you from a whole lot of stuff. Then the other type of scams people like to do are, business promotion or coaching scams. Like, they're not really coaches, or sometimes people will call and say that they want to do some type of advertising with you for a popular show. Just keep asking questions. What network are you with? What agency are you with? What city are you in? What's your phone number? What is your email address? Get all the pertinent information before you give up anything, and set up a time to call them back. Then Google the company. Google the name of the company. Let's say it's, Acme. Google Acme scam. Google Acme complaints, and a whole bunch of things will show up. Look at the Better Business Bureau. That's a great place to start anytime you're getting a incoming call or an unsolicited call from a business. Look at the Better Business Bureau. If they're not accredited with the Better Business Bureau, you may not want to mess with them, or look at the ratings or the complaints that they've gotten. And then credit card processing and equipment leasing scams. Again, be very, very careful. These scammers, I feel like if they spent as much time trying to get money, doing something legitimate, using their powers for good and not evil, we wouldn't be, in the situation that we're in today. But that's just the way of the world. Now, one of the things that you can do to learn to protect your business, there's some free resources. You can go to the ftcfranktomcharlie.gov/small business, and you can find all types of tips and information on protecting your organization. You can order free copies of brochures. They also have a blog, ftc.gov/subscribe, and they also have ftc.gov/scams, which if you have an IT person, they should be dialed into that. If you're a business owner, you should have that. So that way, the new scams that come up, you automatically get an email, and it tells you what's coming up, so you can disseminate this information to your team. The best defense is a great offense, and knowing what these scammers are up against and what they're trying to do to us will help protect us. Another thing that I think is extremely important that we need to do as employees, business owners, anybody with a computer or any type of device. when whether it's Microsoft, their Windows updates or Apple operating system updates, as soon as an update comes out, don't wait to see what, little kinks and bugs are in it. Update that software right away. Usually if there's a outpouring of updates, it's because there's some type of scam or some type of virus that they're trying to protect against. About 2-3 weeks ago, the NSA came out and said everybody needs to update their Windows. If you haven't updated your Windows computer, whether it's at work or at home, you need to do this. There are people out there trying to get our information, and we have to protect ourselves. The internet's like the Wild Wild West. While there are rules and regulations, it's very hard to trace people and to find people. So you have to do your best to kind of protect your business and protect your home from those outside raiders and pirates and bad hombres that wanna get at your information. So again, remember that there is ransomware type of things like what happened with the city of Atlanta and lots of other cities around the country. There's phishing, which is when they try to get into your emails or even through social media on LinkedIn. Sometimes people will pretend they're from the same company as you and they're not. So you have to be careful about this stuff. And the biggest thing is to report it. If something happens, don't be afraid. Tell somebody that it happened. In my family, we have an IT person. I call my cousin down in Florida and say, hey, this and this is happening with my computer. Does this sound right? And I'll give him access to look around my computer and make sure everything's done right. I also pay for a couple of different apps to monitor my computer. Make sure you have the latest and the greatest technology. If you're still using the same antivirus protection that you were using 10 years ago, it may not be up to date, and that may not be the right company. So Google which companies you should be using and make sure they're not linked to Russia or China. Make sure they're American companies, and protect yourself. Password managers is another good thing that you could be using for yourself and for your staff. Even at home, my wife and I use, I think it's called LastPass. And that way, if anything ever happens to me, she knows how to get in, and she has access to all my passwords, and vice versa. My son needs to get with the program, but, he's hiding a whole lot of other stuff, I'm sure. So yeah, so again, make sure that you are up to date on stuff. Some companies and some industries also have compliance type of videos that you can watch and share with your employees. The Small Business Administration has resources. The Federal Trade Commission has resources. Even your Attorney General should have resources on the State Attorney General's website. You can look at different things that may be happening, or there's also areas where you can report. So if you need to report a scam, you can go to the federaltradecommission.gov, ftc.gov/complaint, and you can also find your current Attorney General by going to naag.org, and that's N as in Nancy, aag.org, and then you can figure out who your state Attorney General is, and then you can make a complaint that way. The best way for the government agencies to get a grip on what's happening with these scammers is for us to tell, hey, we see something, we got this call, we got this email, things of that nature. So don't be embarrassed. And again, tell your elders, don't be embarrassed about it. So let's talk about Mike Tyson, the enigma. Mike Tyson, I don't know if there's anybody in this world who doesn't really know who Mike Tyson is. Mike Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champ. I think he was about 20 years old. But Mike Tyson was a kid from Brooklyn who was not taught a lot of the normal things that we're taught as adults. So he was taught from the time he was a teenager basically to be a killer in the ring. There are a lot of social skills that he wasn't taught. And again, I'm not making excuses for him, but Mike Tyson is such a complicated figure in our lifetime that we need to look at him from a couple of different angles. We know that he was not taught a lot of right from wrong. It was just get in the ring, hit people as hard as you possibly can, knock them out, lights out. So, I grew up watching Mike Tyson, loving Mike Tyson, having pay-per-view parties. And then he got into a little bit of trouble. Now, there's he went to jail for raping, I believe her name was Desiree Washington. She was in some Indianapolis, beauty pageant. She went upstairs to his room at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's discussion about whether or not, a woman going to a man's room at 2 a.m. justifies her. She still has the ability to say no. In the Me Too generation, we get it, but back then when it happened in the 90s, people gave her a lot of flack. I believe what happened, and I'm not here to judge. He went to jail and he served his time. But again, let's look at this guy. I used to run into Mike Tyson at clubs in Los Angeles, at events in Los Angeles, and he's got that look in his eye, kind of like 50 Cent, that kind of crazy look. And when you see people like that, you need to back off a little bit. But for me, I always wonder what makes these people tick. One of the things I learned about Mike Tyson is that he wasn't protected by his parents. He was actually kidnapped and molested by a neighbor. And I can't think, more and more we're hearing young men, or we're hearing men talk about things that happened to them when they were little. And I've got this saying, I use it in my family when we try to understand why people are so mean or why people are so evil. But hurt people hurt people. Right? And Mike Tyson he's been a cocaine addict, an alcoholic, a sex addict, all of these things. And again, he was a boxer. So we don't know about concussions. We don't know about CTE. We don't know about a whole lot of things that happens to someone's brain. But while they're out there doing their thing, whether it's boxing, playing football, we're their biggest fans. But then they have to go back into society, and when they go back into society, like a soldier, even when someone has seen so much destruction, or when they're trained to destroy, and we try to put them back into normal society, they don't fit in with us very well. You have to go through almost a deprogramming to be able to fit into society and act civilized and be a normal human. And Mike Tyson, we've been able to watch him rise and fall repeatedly. We've been able to watch him rise and fall repeatedly. So him with this weed ranch now is absolutely fascinating to me. Mike Tyson has been a big advocate of marijuana. He says that it kind of is keeping him at bay. His wife is a big proponent of it. So he wakes up and he smokes, and it's supposed to be, kind of keeping him even kiltered. When we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL players that are partnered with him, and some of the Hollywood icons that are partnered with him for Tyson Holistic Weed Ranch in the Palm Desert. Financial Renaissance with the M's. Today we're going to be talking about our stock market movers and losers. Wake up your sneakerheads, because we're going to be talking about sneakerhead stocks, what they did this week. We're going to be looking at the Dow's gainers and losers, and also recession watch. What is a 10-year Treasury doing versus the 2-year Treasury? But first, let's get back into the Mike Tyson story. That's right. Mike Tyson is going to be opening the Tyson Holistic Ranch out in Palm Desert. And this ranch is a great idea. He's got a partner, ex-NFL player, Eben Britton, who has been a cannabis advocate. And Britton got permission to do, I believe, Adderall, and he got permission to do a couple of other things. And one day when he went to camp, he didn't have his pills with him and took somebody else's pills that were not, sanctioned by the NFL, and so he got kicked out. But he also got kicked out because he has been advocating for cannabis. And they've been doing studies, and not a lot of studies can be done on cannabis because it's still classified as a type whatever drug, the same classification as heroin. But we all know now that that's not the case, that was done because of the Nixon administration. They wanted to get the hippies to stop protesting the Vietnam War. Most hippies were carrying weed on them. These hippies, the same baby boomers that were telling us to say no to drugs, those guys, they used to do all types of stuff. So in order to stop them from protesting the war, they arrested them. They made marijuana illegal. So what we're finding now, there's some studies that are happening about cannabis. The CBD, which is the element of the marijuana plant that does not have the psychotropic effects, right? That part is called THC. And that's the part that makes you feel whatever, loopy or whatever it does. The CBD is the part that has some really good things for your body. And one of the things that they're noticing is, I believe it's called CTE, which is something that ends up happening to a person's brain when they have a lot of concussions. And the marijuana, the cannabis, whether it's CBD, THC, it's stopping the spread of this CTE thing that's happening in the brain for a lot of football players. It's also helping elderly people kind of hold off the progression of dementia. One of the things that accelerates Alzheimer's is something called plaque on the brain. And again, anything that I'm telling you, go ahead and look it up. Trust but verify. Like I told you, my mom's a scientist. She told me to question everything. So just because somebody's telling you something doesn't mean that it's true. Unless you want to be like those Fox News heads that sit there and listen and they receive all this garbage and spew it back out without knowing. If somebody tells you something or there's a fact that you hear something that you like, do your due diligence and dig down into it. So go ahead and Google Alzheimer's, plaque reduction, cannabis, and look at what happens. So what causes us to forget stuff as we grow older is something called plaque that builds up in our brain. And the CBD oil or the THC, whatever it is, this cannabis stops this from spreading. So it doesn't cure Alzheimer's, but it starts to prevent it. So I know a lot of older people who are now getting CBD oil, and they're taking that to just make sure that their brains are staying fresh. And of course, the other thing you can do is keep that brain active, doing crossword puzzles, dancing, I heard. So Mike Tyson has also partnered with a couple of Hollywood heads, and he has his own podcast where they will actually talk about marijuana, the benefits of it. They're also looking at doing a show, kind of a reality-ish show. You can't show marijuana or advertise marijuana on television yet. I think that's wrong. If you can advertise all these drugs, these pharmaceuticals with, all these horrible side effects, we should be able to advertise weed. And I think I also saw a vape commercial last night, right? Yeah, we saw a vape commercial last night, and one of those vape pens just blew up some dude's jaw. So marijuana, let us start advertising for that. That's all I'm saying. Like, let's make this legal. So what Tyson is looking at doing at his weed ranch is not just about weed, and he's not making or growing marijuana. It's a place where they're going to be able to package it and sell it, so they'll find vendors that have high quality marijuana that they'll be selling, and there will be places you can smoke every place at this resort except where they sell alcohol. So any place where alcohol is sold, you cannot smoke weed and have alcohol being handed out in the same location. But whatever. They're also going to be doing music concerts. They had one this year, and they're going to have another one next year. DJs, the whole nine. There was a raffle, smoke a J with Mike Tyson. Not sure that's something that I would want to do, but hey, to each his own, can't say anything. So this reality show that they're doing, they're looking at Maya Rudolph from Saturday Night Live, and I think she was in Bridesmaids, Minnie Riperton's daughter. Very, very funny woman. They're looking at her playing Mike Tyson's wife, and it's really going to be about how the weed just keeps him at bay. What keeps that big monster at bay, and it happens to be marijuana. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the market movers and losers, and our Emma Knows Money got some tips for you coming up in 250 seconds. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. Before the break, we were talking about the Tyson Ranch, Tyson Holistic. That's right. Mike Tyson is going to have the biggest resort dedicated to that sticky, icky green, or so I've heard. Or maybe it's stinky, icky. Is it stinky or is it sticky? I don't know. But either way, one of the benefits of this place, and which is really warming my heart, is that it's going to have the world's longest lazy river. Like, my wife and I went down this lazy river at some resort we were at in Jamaica, and we were drinking. Were we drinking and floating? Yes, we were drinking and floating, going down water slides. Something weird about being in water and drinking is you don't really realize how much you've been drinking until after you get out. I learned that the hard way a few times. But so this is going to be in the Desert Hot Springs, Palm Springs. It's going to be 418 acres. Okay, 418 acres is what this resort is going to be. And to be fun, they're just rounding it up and they're calling it 420 acres. 420, y'all. So before the break, I was telling you about Eben Britton. He was an NFL player. He had a herniated disc during his football career. He had also had back surgery, shoulder surgery, and a ruptured appendix. I didn't know you could rupture your appendix. I thought it just like came out. So he had to manage his pain. And one of the things about a lot of these guys who, again, are athletes, whether you're lifting weights, whether you're running, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're getting banged around, you end up getting a whole lot of anti-inflammatory medicines. And, you know, they're always popping you all these types of pills. And you have to, these guys are trying to figure out how to manage their pain, but not take anything that is off the charts, like steroids or any of that stuff that's on the list of banned substances. And so this guy, he was playing for the Chicago Bears, and he forgot to bring some of his pills to practice. And the NFL, he got an exemption to manage his pain with weed and Adderall, because he didn't want to play anymore. And I guess a lot of the NFL players, they take Adderall so that they can be committed to what they're doing. We'll probably have to do a whole other show on that. But he ended up taking something called Ritalin, and it was a banned substance, so he failed his piss test and he got kicked out of the NFL. And that got him with Mike Tyson and a whole bunch of other people, because they're talking about the benefits of cannabis for ex-athletes and even current athletes. And again, when we see some of these football players and their violent tendencies towards women and other people, remember, think of soldiers with PTSD. If your head's getting banged around a lot, you're not going to be the most normal person, okay? So they've got several head injuries, so this is where marijuana is coming in to help out. So one of the other things that's going to be happening at this ranch, which is, you know, got me just like, yes, I want to see this thing. It's not built yet. And it may take still another couple of years, but there's going to be a luxury hotel, retail stores, facilities for glamping. And glamping is when you really don't want to rough it camping, but you want to say that you went camping, but you know, you've got the nice tent with a real floor and a real bathroom to use, things like that. That's glamping. There's also going to be an amphitheater for concerts, and then Tyson University. And this is what is intriguing me most. And again, for all of you who are thinking about getting into the cannabis industry, listen up. Tyson University is where experts are going to teach cannabis cultivation and techniques for future farmers, okay? So if you are interested in getting into the cannabis game, there are places to go learn. There are places on the West Coast, and then Tyson University is going to be teaching stuff. They're going to have a curriculum from UCLA teaching people agriculture and also how to run a business. So again, it's not important that you know how to grow the best bud. That may not, you know, bully for you. But if you don't know how to distribute, market, and how to run the business of it, you're going to fail. If you want to grow, like industrial hemp is legal now. You got to figure out how to get into that business. You need to know about all of the roadblocks, because of course, like any good thing that's out there, there's going to be some roadblocks for getting into the business. And for people that look like me, you know, are brown, are beige, are black, you know, citizens of our country, it looks like government officials and other businesses are trying to, you know, capture the marijuana market before they make it legal federally. So if you're thinking about getting into the business, start doing your due diligence. Find out there's groups that you can take part of. You don't have to be on the West Coast. You can do things virtually to learn everything that you need to learn. And there's so many aspects of the marijuana business that you can get into. It's not just about growing. It's also about the equipment, the lighting, the heat lamps, the pots, the what do they call it? Aquaponics or hydroponics. Making sure that you can water the stuff, the temperature in the room. I mean, think of a greenhouse. All the things that go into greenhouses and keeping a crop safe. Fertilizers. The little white powdery stuff that you put on. I think it's calcium. Just different stuff that you do with plants. If you know someone who is great at horticulture, like some retirees, that may be somebody that you want to talk to as you're looking at getting into the weed business. I think if I was thinking about it, I'd call my mom. Wouldn't that be our first call? Would be to my mom, like, hey, how do we grow stuff? How do we make this happen? So you want to look into that type of stuff. But again, yeah, with that with the Tyson Ranch, I'm absolutely baffled. Oh, and one cool thing too is they're looking at building another location on the border of Florida and Georgia. Oh, big eyes in the room. That's right. Even though Georgia and Florida do not legally allow for recreational pot, the Tyson and his business partners are in negotiations right now for building something on that Georgia-Florida line. Trying to get those retirees. They think they're slick. We know about you baby boomers. Florida has a bunch of the snowbirds, and they're not snowbirds anymore. And Georgia's also trying to capture a lot of the retirees. So what a perfect place to put a resort dedicated to what the hippies loved best. That's right, weed. So on the way, we have our market movers and losers, and I'm going to be telling you about some numbers you need to know as you start your week this week on Financial Renaissance with the M's. We're back with Financial Renaissance with the M's, the MF, and the folks. That's right. We're going to talk about numbers that you need to know as you're going into this week. Here's a stat. The 18-month recession, during the Great Recession that lasted 18 months from December 2007 to June of 2009, more than $7 trillion worth of real estate and stock were wiped out of the American household off our balance sheets. Now, 10 years later, actually, at a low point, the collective net worth of all Americans fell down to $50.4 trillion as of March 31st, 2009. Now, 10 years later, March 31st of 2019, the collective net worth of Americans has gone up 115% to $108.6 trillion. Now, what this figure is not stating is what percentage did that net worth increase come from? Is it just the top 1% that benefited, or is it everybody collectively? I think I know the answer to that, but I'm waiting for the Federal Reserve to give us some real numbers. That's right. We've had one bank failure in the last 17 and a half months. So congratulations, or wagging my finger at Enloe State Bank of Cooper, Texas. They failed and required a bailout from the FDIC, and it's been the longest stretch since we've had a bank failure since 2007. So, that's great for us. We haven't had many bank failures. Now, served our country. There are 18.2 million veterans in this country, myself included. So thank you all for your service, and thank you, Delta, for letting vets on first, or active duty people on the plane first before everybody else. That feels good. Now, there's a 91-9 split between men and women in the military. Okay, so for every 91 men, there are 9 women. Let that soak in. That number is crazy. So one of the other things that I think, a number that you need to know, is that the average worker who retires in the year 2020, so people who are going to be retiring next year, have paid $36,000 into the Medicare system over their lifetime. Now, what people are projected to receive from Medicare benefits is almost $230,000. So that's where we have a little bit of an imbalance, but the government isn't adding in what was supposed to happen to the money that we're putting aside for Medicare. It's not just supposed to go in and back out to somebody else. It's supposed to go and sit and grow. That part's possibly not happening. Another number that I think is quite interesting is it's about the first recipient of Social Security. Her name was Ida Mae Fuller, and she was from Vermont, and she was the first recipient. She started receiving benefits in January of 1940, and she, Before she started receiving, she started paying into Social Security for 3 years before she retired. She paid in $24.75, but what she took out was $22,889. She ended up living for another 35 years and died at age 100. So for every dollar she paid in, she took out $925 in benefits. That's an amazing number that you need to know on Financial Renaissance with the M's. And we are back on Financial Renaissance with the M's. You can take part of the conversation on Sensation Station Network on Facebook, or you can you should be listening to me on ssnatl.com. Yes, you can keep saying hi to me at 678-613-5857. Thanks for all the birthday wishes. I do look good for 50. I appreciate it. I had good genes. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, bio Dad, bio Mom. Appreciate you guys. So some more numbers that I think you need to know, again, as we are thinking about the recession coming. The recession actually started in 2007, July, August timeframe. We didn't really call the recession until a year later. Remember, it wasn't until September-ish, October-ish, 2008 before everyone said, hey, we are in a recession. So again, the numbers that I'm telling you, I need you to be thinking about, and how do you use this for your benefit? When the market goes down, things are not necessarily bad. There's opportunities to be had. Oh, that rhymed. So something that we need to think about when it comes to oil production, okay? Because we're always, talking about what's going on with OPEC and what's going on in the Arab countries with their oil production, et cetera, and how it drives our oil prices down or up. So the U.S. field production of crude oil reached 12.4 million barrels a day for the week ending May 31st, 2019. That is the largest weekly total reported in the 99 years that this statistic has been tracked. We are pulling more oil out of our ground than ever before. We don't need oil. We have lots of reserves, but in order to keep the economic balance and stability of the world, we still have to import oil from other countries so that they don't hurt us. So another statistic is that there's only been 2 U.S. presidents in the last 75 years who were elected to a first term that failed to win their reelection bid. And that was Jimmy Carter in 1980 and George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, in 1992. Our president thinks that if he doesn't get reelected, his followers are going to come up in arms, and they're going to riot and protest. And let me tell you why that can't happen. Second Amendment. There's a lot of gun owners in this country, and all the gun owners don't belong to his base. One of the great reasons for us not being invaded by other countries is because we're gun owners. Some of us officially gun owners, many of us unofficially gun owners. So you don't know what you're coming up against. So I don't think that's going to be the case, and that's not how America runs. So we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe on that one. All right. Let's talk about home repossession. So this was one of the ways that people came up during the last recession. In 2010, May 2010, banks repossessed 93,000 homes. Now, some of those banks did not repossess those homes the right way. A lot of these people were actually trying to modify their mortgage, et cetera, and those homes got snatched away from them. But in May of 2019, looking 9 years later, 1/9 of that, I guess I'm not doing the math right, but only 10,000 homes were repossessed. So it looks like the number of homes being repossessed is at an all-time low for the last 10 years. Another number that you should know is by the year 2035, the number of Americans at least 65 years old is going to be 78 million. And that's going to be older or more than the number of 18-year-olds. So there's going to be about 76.4 18-year-olds in 2035, but there's going to be more people turning 65. So this is going to be the first time in our nation that that there's going to be more older people than there are younger people. What is that going to mean? It means we're going to have to learn how to be nice to each other and be kind to each other and stop talking about the different generations. United we stand and divided we fall. We're all important. Another great number is if you're looking at buying a car, for every 10% reduction in the weight of an automobile, your fuel efficiency goes up by about 8%. So again, we're looking at lighter vehicles that don't weigh as much, will be easier on your pockets at the gas tank. Now, this Other number has to do with Mexico, and 80% of Mexico's imports are shipped to the United States. When we're thinking and talking about tariffs, we need to think about that. Not good for anybody, either side of the border. Stay tuned. We have Emma Knows Money when we come back, and also our market movers and losers in 300 seconds. Major with Financial Renaissance with the M's. She's be my wife's song. Hey, listen. Before the break, I was talking about the numbers that you need to know. We discussed Mexico's exports. 80% of those are shipped to the U.S. One of the things I want to say about Mexico, and Trump was on TV last week saying that he wouldn't call the FBI and blah blah blah. But listen, y'all, don't be fooled. I don't know if you remember when he called the FBI because El Chapo's son had clapped back at him. He was on Twitter being a little Twitter warrior before he was president. This was probably like 2014, 2015, and had some not so nice stuff to say about El Chapo. While El Chapo was on the lam after he escaped, and El Chapo's son dug into him, and Trump quickly called the FBI because he didn't want to mess with them. So, FYI, you're not a real thug. All right, let's look into our market movers and losers. Okay, market movers and losers. All right, top gainers of the Dow this week: United Healthcare Group was up 1.8%. ExxonMobil Corporation was up 1.4%. Verizon Communications, can you hear me now, was up 0.7%, and Walmart was up 0.7% as well. And then rounding off the top five was Nike, up 0.6%. Our losers this week. And again, remember, look at your 401ks. There may be some opportunities, but Walt Disney was down 1.3%. Dow Incorporated was down 1.2%. United Technologies Corporation was down 1%. Home Depot down 0.9%, and Walgreens Boots Alliance was down 0.8%. The Dow Jones U.S. Home Construction Index, and again, paying attention to what happens with home construction, because that's an indication for us as to whether or not building is still happening. When building slows down, that means that we are getting closer to the recession. Okay, so for the past month, the Dow U.S. Home Index Construction Index was down 2.76%, and for the last week it was down 6.22%. So things are starting to slow down. Overall, the numbers are still looking pretty positive and healthy, but looking at the last month and the last week, looks like we're coming into a little bit of a slow. So looking at what's been happening overall with the different markets, the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished down at 26,719. The Nasdaq Composite Index was also down to 8,031. The S&P 500 Index was also down to 2950, and the Russell 2000 Index also down to 1,549. Now, the U.S. Treasuries, the 10-year Treasury was up. It went up to 2.6%, and the 2-year Treasury was also, I guess this was down to 1.77%. So these two numbers haven't inverted. As a matter of fact, the spread has gotten a little wider, which is a positive sign. So it doesn't look like the recession is happening today. All right, sneakerheads, what are your stocks doing? That's right. Let's look at Nike. Nike was up to $87.75. Adidas was down to 268 euros. Puma was also down to 55.6 euros. Under Armour was down to $23.10. Skechers was down to $31.34, and the Foot Locker was up, closing at $42.27. So again, it's cool to buy sneakers. It's cool to have your sneaker collection, but the other way to get involved in the sneaker game is also to own the stock of sneakers. So if you have a young person that's into, sneakers and Adidas and Nikes and all this stuff, a gift that you can give them to teach them about the stock market is to buy one share or 10 shares or whatever you can afford. Buy a share of that stock for a young person or a teenager or a young adult, so that it's not just about being a consumer and buying consumer goods. It's also about owning a piece of something, because these companies pay dividends. So for each share of stock that you own, a little bit of money comes back to you. And this is something that we need to teach our young people, how to be owners and not just consumers. That's right. All right. So going into our top 5. Are we ready for my top 5 stories? No, we're not quite ready for my top 5 stories. All right. So some of the other things that have been happening in the world have to do with, let's see, our president. Don't really like talking about him, but there's a lot of confusion that's going to be happening. Looks like things with China may have calmed down a little. It looks like the president and the Chinese president, Yi, I believe is how you pronounce his name, are going to have a meeting, a play date. And if they have a play date and the Chinese president says some really nice stuff, then maybe the markets won't react negatively to the tariffs. There are already tariffs in place. There are already tariffs that are hurting us, and again, it's us, the U.S. consumers. So we're hoping we're going to be talking about beast. That's one of our stories. What to do with your beastie children. Beastie children. That's right. It's one of our top 5 stories. Emma Knows Money is going to be coming up after this, and I'm going to be talking about how bookkeepers are saving marriages all across America. That's right. So let's jump into our top story. Africa. Number 1. There was an African Business Summit this past week. And to see what happens and who's really going to be the beneficial recipients from this. But this is like the 3rd or 4th time that other nations have decided to take an interest in Africa. And usually when that happens, when other nations come in, they usually divide and conquer. They divide stuff up unfairly. But it'd be nice to see what happens this time. There are also venture capitalist funds that are focused on Africa. And what I tell economic investment into Africa is hailed as one of the most important economic diplomacy missions of our country since the Marshall Plan. And the Marshall Plan happened after World War II, when the United States gave Europe $13 billion to rebuild the country. All right. They're saying no for reparations, but yes for $60 billion in investment in Africa. All right. The Securities and Exchange Commission. I think they're my boss's boss. So I have to tread lightly with this story. The Securities and Exchange Commission has decided to clarify the roles of registered investment advisors and broker-dealers. And they voted, they passed a new law that says that people like me, registered investment advisors, investment advisory representatives, have to put customers first. That's right. No longer can someone say, hey, I think I need to pay my kids' tuition. I need to go sell this. Yes, we have to do what's in the best interest of our clients. Gee, that sounds so ridiculous, but they've actually made this a law now. Everybody needs to be a fiduciary. If you don't understand the difference between broker-dealers, registered investment advisors, captive companies, go to finra.org, FINRA.org, go to the SEC.org, which is securitiesandexchange.org, and then also do a broker check on finra.org to see about the broker-dealer, check the firm to see how many fines they have, and then also look at the advisor to see how many fines they have as well. I don't really like this story because I think this is way long overdue. They think this is the solution for fixing the middle class is transparency. I say pay the middle class more, and we should have been their fiduciaries for the last 30 years. All right. Now, talked about bullying. We talked about some beasts. So there are some states that have a proposal. Wisconsin is one of them, that if your child is a bully, you, the parent, are going to be fined up to $300 and something and possibly also face some jail time. I say it's about darn time. I raised a kid in the quote-unquote zero tolerance policy of bullying, and it was frustrating for me because you want your kid to defend themselves. You also don't want them to be out there bullying, but schools aren't doing such a great job, and a lot of it comes back down to the parents. So there are some, first of all, let's do this. Most parents know their kids. You know if your child is a jerk. So if you're one of those parents that say, oh, it wasn't my kid would never do that, you're the person that needs to get fined. You are part of the problem. There are 20% of the students aged 12 to 18 who experience bullying each year. 1/5 of all the students in America have had it up to here with people bullying them. So I think this is, great. It's not the 1950s, that whole, athletic jock that beats up the wimp and gets the cheerleader. Like, that was so 20th century. Like, we're so far beyond that now. And if you still think it's funny to bully, then hey, you deserve it. Now, one of the good things that I saw was that there's a municipality in Buffalo, New York, and they've been fining parents $250. They've been threatening to jail people up to 15 days if their kid continues to bully people. And the cool thing is that once they put this law into effect in 2017, the number of parents they've had to talk to or give warning to has gone down dramatically. There are some detractors that say that this is, going to aggravate the parents, and it's not fair because the parents are, they're doing the best that they can. I say bull. If parents can pay for an item, if their kids break something in the store, then they can be held responsible for your kid bullying other people. And remember, kids are actually killing themselves today, so we do need to do something about it. There's no reason for someone 10 or 11 to take their own life because people are speaking ill of them. That's horrible. All right, next story. Versace, Versace, Versace. That's right. Looks like Versace is asking the hip-hop community for help. That's right. Capri Holdings, which is the owner of Michael Kors, has bid, or actually bought, Versace for $2.1 billion. Okay, and Versace is looking at opening up 300 new stores by 2022. Now, remember I said that retail is dying? So there's a few retailers like Nordstrom's and possibly Versace and a couple of others that are looking at how to adapt retail stores to the new buying consumer. One of the things that, we really need to talk about with Versace and the hip-hop community is the hip-hop community, my community. If we're looking at the Bs of the LAB, Latinos, Asians, and Blacks. The Black people spent about $1.3 trillion. Okay, again, consumer spending. So if you're looking at buying Versace, again, make sure that it's somebody that is ingrained into our community, that is giving back to our community, not just dressing our community. Now, Versace has about 14 million Instagram followers, and they're going to look at using Instagram and a couple of other things to advertise their new products. They have 43% of all Black consumers on Instagram. So they are looking at really, really tapping into that market. Generation Z and Generation Y account for about 45% of all the global luxury items spent. That's a lot of money. Pretty important. Now, one of my favorite stories, and this ties into my parents, how baby boomers are reinventing retirement. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, that baby boomers are the first generation that doesn't just do as they're told. They do what they feel like doing. They've been doing what they feel like doing. And now retirees don't want to be in those old age homes or those assisted living facilities. What they're looking for are things like co-housing communities. And these are popping up all over the United States in major urban cities where residents share kitchens, gardens, and outdoor spaces. And they're also going to be doing this for younger people as well, because a lot of the millennials and Generation Zs, they don't have great social skills, so it's better to put them in an environment that forces them to have to interact with others. And for the new baby boomers, this is going to be good because this will prevent shut-ins. And if you have to use a communal kitchen, you're going to start talking with your neighbors. I really, really like this. So the bottom line is nobody wants that suburban life anymore. So if you're a homeowner and you live in the burbs, you need to start thinking about your exit strategy, because guess who's not trying to buy your big house out in the burbs? The millennials don't want it. Generation Z doesn't want it. I'm a Generation X. We don't want it. Even baby boomers don't want it. So you got to think about who's going to end up in the out in the burbs. So for a lot of seniors, these new communities, co-housing communities that are coming up, they're also going to be, I don't want to say rent controlled, but they're going to be for moderate income seniors. They're also going to be for lower income seniors. So it's going to be a really, really cool way for people to get together, share foods. When you're sharing financial burdens, the amount that you have to be able to live longer, because we are living longer than we used to, it's the benefits are definitely going to outweigh the downsides of it. So we've got some savvy baby boomer who want technology and a whole lot of other things, and the way that they're doing their retirement communities is going to be vastly different from what we remember. All right, coming up on Emma Knows Money, how bookkeepers are saving marriages all across America. When we come back on Financial Renaissance with the M's. And we're back on Financial Renaissance with the M's. It is now time for Emma Knows Money. So the tips that I'm going to be giving you are 5 tips for why business owners should hire a bookkeeper. And I was guilty of this for a number of years. And, my family got onto me because at the end of the year, during the holiday season, Christmas break, I was actually, compiling all of my numbers so that I can do my year-end numbers and get it ready for the, CPA for the beginning of the year, etc. But literally, I would spend days doing this stuff because I hadn't done it during the year. So, on average, a business owner can spend about 5 hours a week updating records and making computations, and that's just a regular week. During the tax season, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week. So the thing, if you are doing your own books as a business owner, you are taking valuable time away from your business. And if it's not your business and you're doing it after hours, you're taking valuable time away from your family. And again, we talked about that rejuvenation, things of that nature. When you finish work and you go home, you should not be going back to work. So always make sure that you have somebody that's keeping up with your numbers, and then also make sure you're signing your own checks when it comes to if you're hiring a bookkeeper, make sure you're signing your own checks. Now, let's talk about passion. Most business owners, if you open a business, you got to be passionate, right? Your business ends up becoming your baby. We can't help it. So many business owners are both the brains and the brawn behind the business. So if you feel that your baby is beautiful, you don't want to give up control and let somebody else do it. But if you are not an auditor, if you are not an accountant, if you are not a numbers finance person that loves to read balance sheets, if that's not what your business is about, give that portion of the business up, because more than likely you procrastinate because you hate doing it. And if you procrastinate because you hate doing it, give it up. It is driving us crazy, and it also will lead to burnout. As I said, if you're doing it at night and you're not giving your family the attention, you can burn out. Now, for growth, every business needs our full attention as a business owner, but you can't look at how your business needs to grow if your numbers aren't correct and if you don't have the time to focus on something other than crunching the numbers for the previous week. So don't get bogged down by the little tasks that keep you away from raising up a strong business. Use your talents to do the things that your business, that will help benefit your business, help benefit your customers, help benefit your employees and your team. Hire a bookkeeper to do the small stuff that you don't like. Now let's look at expertise. We all have talents, right? As you look through your talents of the things that you're really, really good at, ask yourself, are you a skilled accountant? When I asked myself, even though that was part of my certified financial planning exam, yes, I am well versed in taxes, but no, I'm nobody's accountant. I don't have a background in finance, and I'm not an expert at doing taxes. Well, I kind of do have a little bit of finance, but not that type of finance. And so ask yourself, what are your true talents and where should you be applying it? As expertise goes, bookkeepers have talents in keeping the books and doing that type of professional work. So you wouldn't hire a bookkeeper to brainstorm new business concepts. You wouldn't hire a bookkeeper to run your marketing, plan your expansion, or any of that stuff. You get the point. Do what you're good at and let your bookkeeper, an accountant, do what they're good at. Now let's look at the expense. A lot of times as business owners, we struggle with coming up with the money to outsource. And again, guilty of it myself. For years I didn't want to do it. But, time is money, and the expense of not hiring a bookkeeper will cost you more in the long run. It may seem like a smart move in the beginning of your business to bootstrap. But when it's time to level up, you have to look at hiring someone else. You've got to take into consideration a couple of factors. How much is your time worth to your business at this point? How much time do you spend on financials and accounting? And then if you put a dollar figure on your time based on how it equates to profits, what would your hourly rate be? And when you put this all together, then you can see in black and white and in the numbers how much easier it is and affordable it really is to hire a bookkeeper rather than doing your own task. And that is the 5 reasons why bookkeepers are saving marriages and partnerships and families all over America, so that business owners can take time to rejuvenate, spend time with their family, and think about being great and expand their business. On Emma Knows Money, we'll be back in 300 seconds. And we are back with Financial Renaissance with the M's. What a great show we had today. I'm telling you, very exciting. I have a renewed energy. Took a whole week off, and I feel like $1 million. Like I could literally talk all day because I've got all that energy. So I want to send a special thanks to my mother and my bonus father, and also my son who showed up today at the studio to say hi to me. He's also my favorite son, my son daddy, because when he doesn't see me or hear from me, he like freaks out and wants to know what I'm doing when I'm on vacation for some reason. I don't question him. But on today's show, we discussed some you should know now what type of scams are targeting businesses, especially small businesses. There's a lot of information on your website as well, so make sure you kind of tone that stuff down or make sure that scammers can't use it. And then we looked at the Mike Tyson Weed Ranch, Tyson Holistic Ranch, which is being built out in Palm Desert. It's 420 acres, 420 acres of just relaxation and actual holistic healing, which is great for a lot of us that are under a lot of stress. It's not just about weed, it's also about healthy eating and learning how to cultivate marijuana if you're looking at getting into that industry, and just the business aspect of it. And then Recession Watch, again, signs and symptoms are there, and we may not know we're in a recession for another year or so, but start doing the things that you need to do to prepare your family to level up. 115% increase in the cumulative collective net worth of Americans since the recession. Well, again, that number is not telling us which percentage of Americans, whether it's the top 1%, top 5%, top 10% that got most of those gains, okay? So if you're looking at, how do I come up, how do I level up if we hit a recession, start saving your money, you start paying down your debt, and make sure that you're ready to take advantage of any opportunities that present themselves when they present themselves once we hit that recession. And then most importantly, as Americans, please, 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 please take time off. I can't stand talking to someone who's burnt out because they're cranky and they're nasty. It's almost like they're hangry. Okay, so make sure that you're taking time off and wire it into your calendars. If you can't take a whole week, take 2 days. Take 2 days before a weekend, another day after a weekend. Whatever you need to do, but make sure you unplug completely from work, from the office, from your employees, from your bosses, from social media even, if that's what you need to do. And in some cases, you may even need to unplug away from your family. There's nice meditation retreats that you can that you can look into. And then finally, rounding up Emma Knows Money with bookkeepers and why bookkeepers are saving marriages. Business owners spend way too much time doing numbers and things that they hate doing. And so we end up procrastinating and not doing stuff, but it ends up costing us time and even more money. So it's better to spend a little here than spend a whole lot down the road. So that was our show today. Next week's show is going to be great. We're going to be talking fraud with AARP and how elder people can prevent, some of those fraud scams and things like that are happening. Now, on the way, we have Smooth Sensational Sundays. And then at 4 o'clock, we have Connecting the Dots with Lee Watts. And as always, remember, one love, one heart. Let's be good humans this week. Remember, our ancestors are watching. Thanks for joining Financial Renaissance with the M's.
You're the only one that will